Welcome to Diaries of a 27-year-old virgin. I'm More Blessing, and we're about to get into my business. I was having a normal day, watching one of my favorite shows, and then something about intimacy was in the conversation. One of my favorite people's on the internet. And they were talking about, it's a couple talking about how their intimacy has evolved over the years. And right there, a thought came to me that not only did I escape teenage pregnancy, but I've also missed out on the sex in your 20s era. So now I didn't expect the feeling of grief that came to me. And it's a weird thing, right, to say you're grieving not having sex in your 20s. But I realize that's actually a real thing for most people. But we don't talk about it because the subject in my culture, in the Black community, sex is not something you just wake up and you're talking about it, But then I would have wanted to hear about it from somebody when I was younger. Even now, as an adult, it's a conversation I would love to engage in. So I said, why not? Let's sit and talk about it. I'll start with my own grief. If there's anybody else out there, experiencing the same thing, then we can have a community where we can talk about that. Because there's something tender and just beautiful in acknowledging the grief of the things that you lost, not because you are regretting the choices you made, but simply because it's something you didn't get to experience while you chose another path. And for me, it's the wild stories. Other kids in my teens, early 20s would be talking about how they woke up in bed next to somebody that they don't know, or how they went on a weekend away and had all these wild experiences. And I'm sitting there. I don't have any of that to share, nothing relatable to that. And only now did I realize that I was grieving it in that process. I did not acknowledge it then, but then now, years later, it's something that I feel, not that I lost, a part of me acknowledges that it's something that my mind has gone through and probably had my own imaginary stories of what it might be like, but I didn't have that experience. And this is by choice. I chose to remain a virgin. I chose to keep my chastity. And it wasn't all because I wanted to. At first, it was because I was scared, super scared of getting pregnant in high school. I did not want to be a teenage mom, and no shame to those who are. But this is something that I grew up really just scared of experiencing. So at first it's like, whatever happens, I should not have a baby while I'm in high school. So that kept me in that space. And then I get out of high school, it's varsity now. And it's not so much about not wanting to be a teen mom, but wanting to keep my mom proud of me. It's something that is celebrated in the Black community if you have kept your virginity. But also, disclaimer, it's only until a certain age. At some point, they start questioning if something is wrong with you for not having a boyfriend or sexual experiences. For me then, in varsity, it was about, I'm going to keep my parents proud. Not so much about me wanting to remain a virgin, but like, okay, my parents would be so proud of me if I get through varsity and there are no sex scandals. Sorry. And yeah, it has not made me feel less of a woman. Until recently, you are 27 and there are other women with kids, with husbands, with sexual histories, And now I'm starting to feel awkward in some spaces because I still don't have wild stories to share. I still don't have I actually do not have a child to say, okay, at this point I have a child or I'm married. And then I had to just sit in the tension of that, the tension of discipline and desire, all right? I call it the tension of discipline and desire because the desire to have sex does not disappear because you've chosen to be a virgin. Nope, it does not. You will still find yourself having these urges or even being in a space and you're thinking, I could actually just create a story at this point because everybody's talking about having had this or that. So there's a point where you start feeling awkward in spaces. You're thinking, I can make up a story over here because you're feeling out of space, out of character. Not because you are, but because culture and the environment you are in is demanding a version of your story that doesn't exist or that you don't have to give. So then I would find myself now with maybe other married people or with people with kids. I'm not really saying to them that I'm a virgin. I purposefully navigate the story so that it just doesn't bring this into the conversation. And I realized it wasn't because I was ashamed of my virginity, but it just wasn't acceptable for me at this age. So then I asked myself, how can I sit in this and own it without feeling as if I am an anomaly to the community? And then I realized I just have to. I just have to own my story and who I am simply because that's the truth of my life. But then there's a poem, a spoken word poem that I love so much. And there's a line in there that says, virgin in the physical, but mentally a grown woman in corner in heat. Nothing has ever rang so true for me but that line for like the last 2 years of my life, where you are physically untouched, but you are mentally aware of your reality. And you have to actively choose. For me, like I said, at first it was the fear of having a child as a teenager. Second, it was now wanting my parents to be happy and to just make them proud. But at this point now, it had to become a choice that I made for myself. If nobody else demanded it of me, is this something that I want for myself? Do I actually want to be a virgin? If my mom didn't care, do I want it? And then it circled back to my faith. As a Christian, I thank God so much for my salvation because every other decision of my life has had to be rooted in my relationship with Him. So now it wasn't about family, it wasn't about fear anymore, but it was about me and what I want out of my relationship with God and what I want for my life. And for some people, for so long, you can only do things because of others, but it doesn't carry you far enough. If it doesn't have value to you or if it's not important to you, it's virginity in my case, but it could be anything else for you. If it's of value to you, you are likely to follow through more than when it's for other people. And maybe not follow through, but there's more reward to you on a personal level when you're doing something that means something to you than to perform for whoever is your target in doing this thing. And for me now, as I sit here, I'm so glad that I got to a point where I chose virginity for myself. I see how it has guarded me from spaces that could have easily thrown me into a lifestyle that I would not be proud to live at this point. There could have been wild stories to tell, but I don't think I would go to bed with the clear conscience or the sense of belonging to self that I have now. Actually, I want to talk about it a little bit. The sense of self-possession that I carry is so meaningful to me, and it has given me a quiet strength and confidence in spaces because I know I belong to myself. I own this part of me and I carry it with such with grace and humility in a way that allows me to sit in it comfortably, if I can say it that way. I can now sit and just be like, I'm a virgin. And I don't feel weird about it because first, I know I belong to myself. Secondly, I know I'm honoring the relationship I want to create with God, the relationship I want to experience with God. And also, this doesn't make me any special in relation to somebody who has had sex before marriage or has had it for whatever reasons, having wanted to keep it, right? It doesn't make me better than them, right? We make our choices and we live with them differently. It doesn't put me in a better spot. That's what I'm trying to say, where my relationship with God is concerned. But it makes my personal experience what it is for me. The person who may have had sex or feels that it's right for them to have done that at this point in their lives, they are God's favorite child nonetheless. They are loved, they are accepted, they are just as blessed as I am. Because there's that misconception that if you're a virgin, you are holier or you are better. Like I said, virgin in the physical, but mentally a grown woman in heat, right? To God, what matters is your heart posture in approaching him. The things you do for him, like me keeping my virginity, it's for my benefit. It's for me and the journey I have to experience life in the way that I can handle it. Because personally, I would not be able to, okay? I don't think I can give myself to somebody in that way and be able to walk away from them. So unless it's a sure thing, unless I am confident I'm walking in this with this person for the rest of my life, that's where I stand, then I'm happy to get into this space with them. But if somebody else is okay giving themselves away outside of marriage, I'm not one to then point a finger and say, you should have known better. You should have done better. Because if I was in their position, I wouldn't know what to do, right? I wouldn't know how I'd respond. I can only speak for my position. And I think it's key when we consider this subject to not make it seem as if being a virgin makes you the ultimate goal to aspire to be, right? It's my story. Like I said, this is my experience. I believe that sex is sacred. I believe that it's something that we should approach with careful thought and consider it as a consider its long-term effect on your life. I think that when you decide to be in that space with somebody, you must consider that they're going to be a part of you for the long time. It doesn't show right away, but it's one of the most, not actually one of the most, I think it's the deepest form of connection that human beings can have. And for me, sharing myself in that way with one person matters a lot. It matters that I don't expose myself to more than people I can handle. I think of it this way. Every sexual partner that I might have, hypothetically, I'm kind of carrying them in my soul with me to an extent, in some way. So how many of these people can I carry in my soul and still be myself? How many of these encounters can I have and still preserve a sense of centeredness to who I am at the core? As much as virginity does not define you, it forms a deep part of your character. It forms a deep part of how you approach everything else. Because it means putting boundaries in friendships, in relational experiences with people that I wouldn't normally have if I was open to having sex with just anybody. So then it puts me in a spot where I have to watch for who gets access to me, or I have to watch for how my interactions with certain people are going to lead me away from this decision I made, or are going to keep me focused on this decision I made. That's one of the ways that I've maintained my chastity. And I think it's important for anybody listening to really consider how you want your long term to look like. Because when you think about it with the short term in vision, you could just be like, so what? Nobody's going to know if I go out and I meet so and so, I come back home, life moves on. But if you are thinking about your life in a longer framework of things, there are consequences to you maybe just walking past somebody one day. Maybe you're married now and you walk past one of your lovers or one of your experiences. I would want to think that as much as we forget on purpose, this person still carries a bit of you, right? You're going to walk past them and a memory is going to be triggered, maybe in you or in them. And that is something you have no control over. That is something that you can just easily fix, right? It takes work. And you make the choice of whether you want to put yourself through that or not. And I have had to come to a place where I'm more committed to who I am and who I want to see myself become, that I prize that over immediate gratification. And this life that we are in, our world is so me, now, mine, pleasure, that you can easily blur those lines. And I've found myself in such a spot where you are in these conversations with people, like I said previously, where they're talking about their experiences, and you're thinking in your mind, it's harmless exploration. I could just try this out and see, how that turns out. And the easiest or the most common thing with women and men is porn and masturbation, right? You are told this is not actual sex. You're still a virgin. You're just pleasing yourself, or you're just taking care of the needful until you are able to have the real thing. And that is one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever had to sit and think about, and even think about sharing, because it's a sticky space, right? Where is the boundary of figuring out what you like or what your body needs, and keeping this promise to walk in purity, honor God with your body, and maintain your actual virginity, right? And for me, it's still a question I sit with. And I wanted to be honest about that too, because I think the perception is that if you're a virgin, then maybe you're not messing around. Maybe you're not exposed to anything sexual at all. It's not true for me. And I think it's important for even parents to know that we are exposed to a lot of things growing up, children, teenagers, young adults, in the many circles that we end up in. And for me, it was a visitor that came to visit at home. We're just chilled, about to go to sleep. They're like, check this out. They're showing me a video, just easily showing me porn. And at that time, it wasn't in my mind like, oh my gosh, this is something I want to explore or see it. And that was long before I chose virginity for myself, right? This was still scared of getting pregnant at my teenage years. So then you are introduced to this. It's at the back of your mind. I didn't go and then start watching porn for myself at that age. But then that seed has been planted in my mind. Fast forward, dating young, I'm in my teen years. I am experiencing young love and whatnot. And one of the guys that I was with, I say one of the guys like, hey, I was out here. One person that I was with, then one of the days is like, let me show you what I would like for us to do. That's another encounter. So I'm sharing this detail to paint a picture of how you have to continuously choose what you want for yourself, but also to show a picture of how you have no control of what you're exposed to that can have an influence over the choices you make. You don't get to choose what is brought into your space. It's not always that you can guard yourself against that. But at the consideration of what you're exposed to, you have the power to choose how you come out of that. And it doesn't always have to look good. It doesn't have to be this perfect story of, I never did it. I never, It's okay to not hit the mark and still choose to go after hitting the mark. So for me, I dabbled in a lot of harmless exploration. I think that's as simple as I can put it. Until it started affecting my relationship with God again, because that means a lot to me. It's at the center of me also keeping my chastity. So then I would be feeling so dirty, if I can say. I would be feeling so unworthy of engaging in prayer. Or now or just sitting with my parents, I'm thinking, my mind, right now, if my parents knew, oh my goodness. Or not just if my parents knew, but is what I'm like, are my actions not indirectly influencing the other spaces that I show up in? For me, it's church. It's generally working with people on a spiritual level, right? Where I'd have to sing at church, for example, for a service. And I've been in my feelings the past weekend, and I'm just like, Jesus, if you can just take me now before I do this, because you're now not a reference to how much of yourself you can lose in sharing yourself sexually, not only with people, but with these modes of sexual pleasures that are around and available to you. And I get that it can be a different perspective for other people. But again, my story, this is how I view these things. So then it would feel like a part of me is broken. A part of me is just not sitting right because of what I would have watched or done, right? And it starts small, and then it spirals into all these things you can't control. The reason why they call it immediate gratification is because it's just that. It's immediate. It's not gonna fix the rest of your life. The longing, with what I've learned about the longing of intimacy, is that you just want to be known. You just want to feel seen. There are emotions in you that you feel like they have no expression outlet. And culture has conditioned us to think that it can only be in a romantic space. I had to learn to go to God with my emotions. I had to learn to pray through my discomforts and through my desires, to literally sit and be like, God, I just feel like having sex, but I don't know what to do with this. I don't want to do it because I'm not in a space that I believe is safe for me to do so. I don't want to just give myself to somebody because right now this is how I feel. And I had to learn, God, I'm feeling lustful towards that person. I don't think I'm looking at them right anymore. But I can't tell my mom. I can't really go to my friends and tell them. It's a different thing to say, I like this guy, he's good looking. But you can't tell your friend, or at least I felt that I couldn't say, you know what, I'm definitely having ungodly thoughts about this guy. All right, I felt like that's creepy. I actually just think it is, right? Although it's actually a real thing. You're having these thoughts. And now I'm sitting there, I'm like, what do I do with this? So I started journaling. I started praying through those things. But it didn't make it go away. What it did is that it provided me with the space and the way to process it that was healthy for me. It didn't also just fix this space I had created as an alternative to dealing with my sexual desires. I had to choose that even if I don't get it right in maybe avoiding porn, I'm still going to go to God and tell him how I feel. I'm still going to go to God and express both my shame, disappointment with myself, and just tell him, this is where I'm at, right? I'm choosing to do this with you. I'm choosing to walk in this purity space with you. So help me figure that out. Send me people, send me spaces that can help me walk this out a lot better than I am right now. And I'm grateful that I met people that I can talk to a lot more freely, dare I say explicitly, about this. I'm grateful that I got to experience a deeper level of prayer with God, because now I come to Him literally naked. Like, at the core of me, this is what's happening. But your word says, come boldly to me. At the core of me, this is where I stand. But you want to walk this journey with me still. And in those spaces, He redeemed how I saw myself, how I saw others as well. Because in that space, I could now understand how God can still love the worst of people in our perceptions, the worst of situations that He can make look good for His purpose. Because I wouldn't have been sharing this, actually, if there was no confidence coming from Him loving me as I am. If there was no confidence of knowing that whatever is going to be thought of me after this, He still thinks I'm lovely. He still thinks I'm worthy. He still thinks I'm the apple of His eye. And listen, being the apple of God's eye beats being the apple of any guy's eye. That's what has been so beautiful about this journey for me, where I learned the love of God for myself. I learned about the meaningfulness of the cross, because I couldn't. There are certain things that you go through life that can help you understand God better. Like if you are lacking and you get financial breakthrough, you're like, God, you're a provider. But Him as a lover, that's a different ballgame altogether. And it is in this space of guarding my chastity that I met Him there. I had to accept myself because He accepted me. And that has given me so much freedom, so much joy at doing life, because I know that even if, God forbid, that I have sex before marriage, He does not discount, He's not keeping points as to you're getting this right, so you deserve my love, so you're worthy of being an instrument useful for me in purpose and the grand scheme of His eternal plan. No, He still loves me whether or not I'm not performing the way I think I should. And that's also a power in itself. I stopped focusing on behaving right, but focusing on what is on His heart for me. And when I know what is on His heart for me, I can then act in accordance to that, as opposed to trying to fix my behavior to get to what is on His heart for me. So there's a verse in the Bible that talks about how all things are permissible, but not all things are beneficial to you. And I want to talk about that in relation to the boundaries around self-pleasure, exposure to porn, and maybe figuring out what you like outside of actually having sex. And the point to take away from this verse is that, but not all things are beneficial. Permissible, yes. You can do anything you want. You can expose yourself to anything, really. But then for you, how do you go to sleep at night? That's all it boils down to. It's a personal thing. If I can handle this much, or if I can live with XYZ, sure thing. if it's feeling beneficial to me. But also the benefit is not only about you, right? Our lives are not only for ourselves. As much as we want to tell ourselves that I'm here for myself, I exist for myself, we're still connected to other people's lives. And you might not notice it now or right away, what the effects of your choices in private have on the relationships you have, the kind of people that you find yourself surrounded by. So there's a verse in the Bible. I'll read it for us, just so, I'm not making things up out of my own head. I brought my Bible to a podcast, y'all. I brought my Bible and said, ha. Anyway, so it's 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 23. And it says, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but not all things edify. The context of this, there was a lot of things happening with the Corinthians, but I want to speak about the relevance of this in how much harmless exploration can actually be detrimental to us, to our character, to our circles, to how we turn out as people, right? So you might think to yourself, I can handle this. I can do this. This is within my capacity to live with. But your life does not only belong to you. Your life is not only for yourself. There are people who will be influenced by the things that you choose to do in private. Maybe not right away, but eventually. You won't have anybody confronting you about things you do in secret unless they know about it. But you will behave in line with also the things that you do in secret, because those are the things that make up your inner person, right? What we do when no one else is watching is essential to who we are as a person. And I wanted to just express how I felt convicted to not only practice purity in my sexual space, but in as much as I am doing anything else, to consider that if my intentions are pure, even in my work, if my intentions are pure in my friendships, it's a reward for myself and the people that I'm connecting with. It's not only a narrow path, an uncomfortable choice I'm making for myself alone. There's a reward in my community when my intentions are pure, right? And the things that are permissible to me, how much of them will actually bring about a good result to the person that I want to be? How much of the things that I'm allowed to do are useful and edify the person that I am now and even the person I want to become? Because we often choose things simply because you have access to it, or it's what's accepted, or any other reason that might come up that has little to do with the essence of who you are as a person. And honestly, your core matters in what you do, and preserving the sacredness of who you are as a person is important to how you navigate life. When you don't belong to yourself, or when you don't have a sense of identity, you are going to be doing everything and anything and not find meaning, because it does not speak to who you are. It does not speak to your true essence, right? So even if I am going to engage in sex right now, I know for sure that I'm going to walk away regretting it. Not because it's not allowed, not because it's not offered, not because it's not possible, or any other reason outside of the core of my being has now been primed to guard my chastity as first honor to God and respect for myself. So anything outside of that will throw me off balance. And I think that's something for us to consider when we navigate not only our sexual space, but everything else that you do. Like, if I'm going to engage in this deal, how is it taking away from my actual identity and who I believe myself to be? And how can I live with this? Right? But yeah, I'm not talking about business deals. It's just in hindsight. We have to come to a place of learning how to choose commitment over convenience. I had to come to a place of learning how to choose the commitment I made to myself over convenience, right? Because the temptation to do otherwise gets louder even by the day. And the commitment to what I want for myself has to come out on top over what's convenient for me today. What's convenient for me today is to do it and get it over with. Then I don't have to struggle in this area, or so I think. But I think the commitment you make to yourself should take priority so much that even when it feels really difficult to stay the course, you know that I'm not choosing this simply because it's convenient for me to do. Because there's a danger in that. What's convenient today can turn out to be not the best choice tomorrow. It's not always the best thing to do for you to choose what's working for right now, especially when you have a greater goal in mind. And also, I had to remind myself, or I actually remind myself every now and then, that I'm not punished, but I'm actually preserved. I'm not punished by withholding my sexual life or my virginity from somebody. It's not there to take away from me. If anything, it's a preservation. Bottom line is I'm kept from things that sometimes you're exposed to without choice when you choose to get into sexual relations at any point in your life. For example, you could get sick. For example, you could actually get pregnant and you didn't want it to happen. For example, this person can just be out here wanting to sleep with you, not to be with you. There are a lot of other things to consider, right? And I'm not being kept from or I'm not keeping myself from having sex only because of those things, but because of the preservation it just brings when you know that this is not something I have to worry about. This is not all this to say the grief of what you think you have lost is real. Temptations are real, but there's also a gift in the preservation that comes from choosing to keep myself this far. I have, like I said, this sense of really sitting in my identity and sense of self in a way that I don't think I would have if I didn't choose to keep my virginity. But also, there's this assurance that God is doing this with me. There's this assurance that even if I don't do it for anybody else. I am happy committing to this for myself. And I don't know what your story is right now, but if there is a decision you've made and you want to see it through, not only in your sexuality, but more so in your sexuality, keep to it not because of anybody else. Keep to it not because of what you think is in it for you in the future, but for yourself now. And just learn to sit comfortably in your skin with the decisions that you've made, with the choice that you've made, even if no one is clapping for you right now. I'm not done talking about this just yet. I'm gonna get into other bits of my journey. But yeah, thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for choosing to spend these few minutes with me. Tap into part 2. There's more.